Hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Rustic Songbird Podcast. Today I am here with my good friend DarleneRaye, who is actually the podcast assistant for this show, and usually she's in the background. Usually she's helping me make this show happen, and today I've got her on here with me. I'm so excited. We are going to talk about the behind the scenes of the podcast, answer some questions, and also just talk about this year, what has happened with the podcast, and also what to expect, and some sneak peeks into next year, what to plan for. So we're really excited to be on here together. Darlene's been on the show before, and I interviewed her, so if you scroll way back, you can listen to her story. But today, we're going to team up to talk about the behind the scenes of the podcast. So Darlene, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
This is going to be so fun to do an episode together. We've been looking forward to this, and wow, what a crazy year it has been.
Yes, 2020 equals quarantine.
You've been quarantining hard this year. I know you've been serious about that, and we have been communicating over email and FaceTime and using Google Docs. I was like, Google Talks, what is that? Maybe something new in 2021, I don't know. But yeah, using Google Docs and just getting communication things set up so we can talk and plan for the podcast. And we really haven't done a whole lot in person, which hopefully we can do more of that in the future. But we have talked about the topics that we're going to have on the show, the guests that we're having on the show, and a lot of people have asked, who is DarleneRaye and what does she do on the podcast? Because they might see your name on an Instagram post, or they might see something that you post and share, and usually people hear my voice on the show as the host, and they might think, well, what does DarleneRaye do? So tell me from your perspective, kind of like your, I guess, job description, or like you're part of this team on the Rustic Songbird team.
Well, hello everyone. I'm DarleneRaye. For now, I'm your podcast assistant, but that will change in 2021. I am responsible for everything that goes out on social media, like scheduling our posts, scheduling our graphics, making the graphics for each episode, scheduling when our post will go out, scheduling the distribution of the podcast episodes on our platform that distributes it to all the platforms that you might listen on. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into a podcast. You wouldn't think there is, but there definitely is. And it definitely takes 2 to 3 people to make a podcast happen.
If I knew how much work went into a podcast before I started, I may not have started, because I thought, oh, this is great. I'm really excited to start this. And I did start by doing all the things myself, and quickly learned I am going to need help. I'm going to need a team. And what happened with Darlene was, we were already friends. We had known each other through my music, and she was following the podcast and promoting it as well, just as a fan. And I thought, well, we both don't need to be making graphics and posting them. How about you help me, because I could use the help. So she started volunteering and helping me, and then I ended up hiring her to do it, and she's done an amazing job. And one thing I am really proud of in this year is that we have not missed a weekly episode of this podcast in 2020 during a pandemic, when everything has been up in the air, it feels like, in this past year. But we have had an episode come out on the podcast every single Monday of this year, and I'm so proud of that. And a big part of that is because Darlene's helped me. We've gotten organized, we're on a schedule, we're planning ahead, and that's really helped us when there are technical difficulties, or we have to reschedule an interview. We're not scrambling every week knowing, well, who's going to be on the show this week. It's all kind of planned out in advance, and we've gotten our systems down by now. We're pretty far ahead, and I'm really excited that we've gotten to that point. So what's it been like for you as we're like organizing who does what, and like what the show's going to look like, planning ahead, getting organized? How would you describe that process?
Well, when we get a new quarter or a new document and Lydia sends it to me, the first thing I do is make graphics for as many as I can, as many as are written on that. And then once we record our interviews, or Lydia does, because I don't do that.
Right, I'm hosting it. I get the audio, I send it to her. We've got a whole system here. We're like batching, is what you're talking about, like doing all the graphics and then doing the editing. This is actually a fairly new thing that you've taken over, editing the audio.
Right, I've been editing audio since, I think, episode 71, and it's just been a real thrill to actually be doing something that I went to school, and it was a part of my curriculum as a TV production student at Murray State. Shout out to Chris and Jeremy for all their teachings, and just they really taught me, and I wasn't going to bring this up, but I feel like it's important, to be absolutely perfect with all your work. And that's something that I try to do when I'm editing, or, you know, cutting it as close as I can, leaving no airway or unnatural things. And that's something that Jeremy and Chris really instilled in me as a part of our curriculum, to not put something out that, I mean, you can put stuff out and it can be good quality, but try to get it as perfect as possible. And my ear for editing and stuff is, I really take it over the top sometimes and get really technical with it, but that's just me personally. Somebody else might not do that, but I do, because that's just how I feel like it should be.
Yeah, and you are top notch. Like, you know what good quality audio is, you know how it should sound, and you have that high standard for yourself, which has been great for me passing it off to you, because I know I can trust you to do a good job on it, and I don't have to worry about it. And so I can really focus my time and energy when I'm working on the podcast on getting really good guests, and like what questions I'm going to ask them, and scheduling other things around, and being able to plan ahead like this. So taking tasks off my plate like that has been so helpful. And I know some people do the podcast, do a podcast all by themselves, and you can, to a point, but I really feel like it's brought the quality of this show up a big step, like up to top-notch quality, by having at least two of us working on the show. I mean, there could probably be more in the future, but at this point we are, you know, streamlining it and figuring out what can we do to make it the best that we can with two people on the team. And one thing I wanted to mention on this, one reason we haven't missed an upload and we have been consistent, is that once I had Darlene on my team, I was like, I don't want to let her down, you know, I don't want to drop an episode or like be late on something. And so that actually drives me to like do my best and keep going, because if it was just a responsibility for me, or this was like a hobby or something, I could walk away, I could say, oh, I don't feel like it. But I am so serious about this podcast, and I know you're serious about this podcast, so that accountability has really helped me, because I'm like, I don't want to let the listeners down, I don't want to let Darlene down, like I need to keep showing up. And so that's kind of fueled my fire and my motivation to keep making this podcast great, because I'm like, we're growing something really special here, and there's a lot of purpose in it.
Yeah, I really think that, I mean, God brought us together for a reason, and I found your song Butterfly in 2015 for a reason, not knowing that eventually I would work for you and do the thing that I love the most, which is promoting. And not only do I promote the podcast, but I'm basically your promoter, and your art, your music, and I do that stuff for you too. Like, I promote your music and just everything Lydia Walker is basically.
I think it's so sweet. You have told me in the past, like, that you're a fan first, and that you just really, you know, care. And now we're practically like family, because you know, we work closely together, but it's like that loyalty and just like, hey, I'm gonna support you in whatever you're gonna do, we're gonna figure this out together. That has been really helpful to me, because it's not just about making a podcast, I'm like, if something changed with the podcast and we were doing something different, we would still do it together. I feel like we're going to grow this or grow whatever it's going to be in the future, you know, if we changed it and did more events, or if we were doing, you know, bigger things with Rustic Songbird. I would love to see that. Yeah, but right now it's like, you know, we need to be faithful with what we have, and right now it's being consistent on the podcast, and getting to do this together is really special because it has taken that to the next step. So I'm excited to have you on today because we're kind of talking behind the scenes. I don't talk about how the podcast is made. A lot of times we're really focused on the topics, and one thing that I've noticed this year, as opposed to like last year, the topics were kind of scattered. It wasn't very very streamlined at all, which is fine because I was testing a few different things, and I was like, well, let's talk to this person about this. But this year in 2020, we've gotten really consistent with like the type of topics. I'm doing keyword research to see what are people searching for, what kind of questions do they have about this. And when I started the show, I wanted it to be about songwriting. And that's kind of a general thing. I was like, let's help songwriters, let's encourage songwriters, let's interview songwriters. Okay. But it's really gotten even narrower than that, in that I realized I want to help independent musicians who are writing, recording, releasing their own music, trying to promote their own music, because I know how that feels as an independent musician, and I know so many musicians that would love to tap into the knowledge of experts that do this every day. And so I thought, why don't I start inviting those experts on my show, inviting other people that have music podcasts or songwriting podcasts, or people that have an audience or have clients and do coaching maybe, but like connect my listeners to the people in the expert fields that are doing this really, really well and doing it right now.
Right, and I think it's important to mention too, as an independent artist, I am not an independent artist, but coming from a person who knows what it's like to have a loyal fan base and be loyal and really work hard to do what independent artists do. I mean, it takes a lot of work to be, I feel like independent artists have to work so much harder to get their stuff out there and even be heard, because you're not being supported by a record label. You don't have all these people backing you. They don't have money to give you when you go on trips that's taken out of your budget at the end of the year. Like, there's not all that stuff that there is in the country music industry, and it's just so much harder. So I fell hard for supporting independent artists.
Yeah, we both have a passion for that, because we see the importance of like having the education and the information and the knowledge to, you know, wear all the hats. Because if you're an independent musician, you are your own agent, you're your own booker, you're your own, you know, you might be designing your own t-shirts and selling your t-shirts and shipping them out and like setting up your merch table at shows. You know, you're songwriting, you're publishing, you're trying to release your own songs. And there's so much out there that it's really overwhelming and can be lonely, like you said. If you don't have a whole team of people supporting you, it's like, where do you even start? So the whole point of beginning this podcast, of the Rustic Songbird Podcast, was to create something that I wish I had when I was starting, and that has been a consistent theme on people that have come on the show to be a guest, and then we'll be chatting before or after, and they'll say, you know what, I really wish I had this when I was getting started. I wish I could like tap into conversations like this that people were having in the industry, like in Nashville with a music publisher, or with somebody who does copyrights, or with somebody that works for a record label, and like see how this even works. So I think this is so valuable, just create this library of content through our, you know, 30 to 45 minute episodes that we're doing. We did have one really long episode way back, and it was like over an hour. And I realized
Shay Watson.
Yeah, Shay's was really long, but it was so good. I didn't want to like stop it. So I heard several people say I had to listen to that in 2 parts.
I did too, honestly.
But it was so good. And so yeah, if you if you don't know already, on the podcast app, you can actually speed up the sound and listen faster, like 1.5 times. I did that at one point when I wanted to get through like audiobooks quickly. I sped it up. So there are hacks to that if it's like a really long podcast. But because of that, I do try to aim for 30 minutes. I feel like that's the sweet spot of like a good in-depth podcast. You might have time like washing dishes or folding laundry or driving or listening in the shower or wherever you listen to podcasts.
I've done all of those.
Yeah, I'm speaking from experience. I'm like, I can put on something for 30 minutes in the background while I'm doing something else and listen to it. And if it gets over an hour, you know, I might have to break it up into a couple times. But 30 minutes seems to be the thing. Let us know, send us a message or leave a comment and let us know if you like that 30-minute or maybe 30 to 45-minute range of a podcast. We would love to hear some feedback and would love for you to leave a review of the show and let us know what you like, because that helps us plan future episodes to be helpful.
And maybe what you don't like too.
What you don't like. If you're like, Lydia, stop doing this one thing, it's like really annoying. I don't know what that would be, but if I'm doing something annoying, tell me, please, because I probably don't know it. But I think it's really helpful to have feedback so we can plan better and just tweak it and make it as good as it can be.
Right. And that's ultimately going back to what I was saying before. I try to make everything that I do from my standpoint of the podcast perfect as I can be, because I really care about, you know, what I'm listening to every week and what y'all have to listen to every week. Because if it's not perfect, it's going to drive me crazy, and I will go and say, well, that should have been like this, or it should have been like this. But we're just happy to be getting content out to you in a pandemic, and we have not stopped, and we're not going to stop.
Yeah, I think that consistency is what's going to help keep this podcast growing. And so I do want to invite you to share it with someone, with another independent musician, with a songwriter who could use some encouragement, and also just this knowledge and information from people that are in those fields that are, you know, really good at what they're doing. They're sharing encouragement as well as like the practical tips and strategies and resources. We've talked about different books on the show, you know, sent you to check out different programs if you're interested in those coaches, or you know, just sending you to different organizations that help songwriters. So that's really our goal here, is to be like a collection of all those great resources, connect you with those people, and help you take your music to the next level, which has been a consistent theme from the beginning, but I feel like we're really honing in on what does it mean, like how can we get you to the next level with your music career, what that's gonna look like, really. So 2020 has been you know, the year that we're really getting our systems together. We've started planning things at least a month ahead. We're kind of planning them at a quarter at a time for like 3 months and the next 3 months, so we know what's coming up. But if we've learned anything in 2020, it's that anything can be up in the air, and who knows what's going to happen in 2021. So we can only plan so much in our planning process, but we're both committed to being here, to having an episode come out every single Monday on the Rustic Songbird Podcast. And, you know, it's going to come from this heart that we both have to support independent musicians and to help you. And so that's the heart behind what we do at the podcast, and like why we even put this out. It's not for us to be famous podcasters. If that was it, we would have given up a long time ago, because the numbers are, you know, they're gradually, organically growing. I like to think of it as that, because there haven't been huge spikes in the listenership, but it's been this steady growth. And like, really for me, what encourages me is that I'll have a conversation with individuals. I'll have a conversation with one person at a time who listened to maybe 3 or 4 episodes, and they're like, you know what, I got a lot out of that, and I needed to hear that one conversation or that one topic that we were talking about. And they were like, that really turned things around for me. I was thinking about giving up, or I was thinking about you know, quitting music, but then this was really encouraging. And so like, man, conversations like that make me want to keep going. And I'm like,
that makes me want to keep doing my job.
Is that, like, I've gotten texts from people that are like, hey, I'm listening to the show, and I just want you to tell you that you're doing a good job and that it's making a difference. And hearing that makes me want to keep going. And
Yeah.
it's not about like hitting big numbers or being the most popular podcast. We could care less about that. And that's why we're still going, is because we have this like deeper purpose and meaning for being here and showing up every week.
Basically, what we're saying is we want you to succeed in whatever you want to do. It's
Yeah.
not about the numbers or being famous for us. Although that would be really nice.
I do think it's going to keep growing, and I think if we keep putting out top-notch content, like, it's inevitable, like, more people are going to see it, basically, because we're going to keep showing up and be consistent. And that's one thing that we're wanting to teach musicians, is how do you do that with your music. I mean, we're promoting the podcast, but you can promote your music and grow your fan base like that organically over time. And then at some point a song will take off, at some point a video will go viral or get a bunch of attention or get shared a lot. And so it's just that consistency of showing up that that's really all we have control over is what we're going to do and like how we respond to the situation. And so right now, we're both committed to show up every single week. And so that's kind of a wrap up of the year, like some things that have happened in 2020. As far as the podcast coming out every week started in January. So before that, it was every other week for a while. It was every other week we would have a new podcast. But then January of 2020, we started with weekly episodes. And now here we are at the end of the year talking about it, and we've not missed an episode. Super, super proud. But then next week's episode is actually going to be a year in review, and we're going to play some clips from the top downloaded episodes of the year, and I think you're going to get a lot out of that, of just hearing some of those topics that have really hit home for people that have made a splash and have gotten the most downloads. So it seems to be one indicator of what you guys want to hear more of. So we're going to do a kind of compilation of that for next week's episode. So stay tuned for that. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, and then it'll automatically show up in your podcast app like magic. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the weekly episodes, because we're going to keep showing up for you. So show up for us too. Be part of the subscriber family and be part of the Rustic Songbird family, because we're going to keep showing up, and this is what we're all about. So we wanted to talk about this year, but also give you a sneak peek into next year. What to plan for next year. So Darlene, what are you excited about moving forward?
I'm just excited to see what God is going to do with the podcast, because I feel like with the year we've had in 2020, I just feel like He has bigger plans for everything, since this year has basically gone down the bucket. I feel like that He just has bigger and better plans, and He is still in control no matter what is going on. So we just have to keep the faith and know that things are going to work together for His good, because that's what He promises.
Yeah, that's so true. And I'm glad you brought that up. And it's been really encouraging to me to have you to bounce ideas on it and talk about things behind the scenes too. When I am, going through ideas or trying to think of, what to do moving forward, you are always really encouraging, and I need that too on my team. So I appreciate you for that. And I feel very hopeful about things moving forward. I see it growing. I see the potential, and also just, pouring our hearts into making it the best that it can be. I think it's going to go as far as it needs to go. And so we can't control all of that, but what we can control is being consistent and letting God take control of the rest, because we know that ultimately He's the one in control, and if we trust Him, then it's going to work out for His glory. So moving forward in 2021 kind of looks like this. This is where we're at the end of the year, and then moving forward, we are getting more specific with the topics, with the guest, and I'm excited about that, because I think it's a good way to get started from a general form of topics into more specifics. So this year we really focused on who we're serving, which is independent musicians who want to release their own music. So starting in January of 2021, we're going to start rotating through 4 different topics or 4 different seasons and have a certain topic every month. What I mean by that is January, we're going to focus on songwriting. Then the next month, we're going to talk about recording. The next month, we're going to talk about releasing your own music, and then the next month talk about promoting your own music. So we're going to cycle through those 4 things and really get intentional on the topics that we're talking about. So that's songwriting, recording your music, releasing it, and promoting it, and going through those. And then that shares kind of some insight on what you guys are interested in, and I would love to kind of tweak it to your feedback. So let us know what kind of topics you'd like to learn about as far as the craft of songwriting and getting into recording studios or recording at home. There's a lot we can talk about. Releasing your own music and planning and you know, setting up a promotion plan. I think if you have any plan at all, you are way ahead of other musicians who just throw the music out there and hear crickets, and that's what we don't want for you. So we might make some videos or some podcasts about what not to do, because there are plenty of things that you shouldn't be doing with your music. Let's give them a teaser for that right now. From the promotion girl, I want to hear this because you're all about promotions. Tell us a little bit about what not to do when promoting your music.
What not to do? Well, don't post absolutely nothing. You should post something every single day. That is so important, to be consistent. Even though it might seem redundant, not everybody's going to see every single post you post. Like, especially promotion is advertising. If you want to get yourself out there, you must promote and you must be consistent. You must advertise every single day.
Yeah, it's like showing up to a job. I mean, showing up and sharing your music or talking to fans or commenting or replying to comments. Like, there's so many things that are important of just showing up, even if it's a few minutes a day, putting something out there to show people like that you're available, that you're making music, that your music can be listened to and how it can be listened to. I have really learned a lot about getting very clear with a message. Like, they call it a call to action in marketing. Get really clear with what you want them to do. So when they see your picture, do they know to go listen to your music? Do they know if there's a link in your bio? If there's a link in your profile, do they know that they can click that and go listen to your music? Like, you need to be telling people where to go. And so sometimes it's just easier than we think. I know for me as a creative person, I complicate things. I'm like, let's do all the things and promote on all the places and like say it in a really cool way or a flowery way. And that's just not what works. We need to be as short as we can and get the information across so people understand how they can support our music, how they can support what we're promoting, and they know exactly what you mean with what you're saying.
Well, and yeah, back to what you said about different platforms. Different platforms could reach a different number of people because not everybody has Facebook. Not everybody's on Twitter. Not everybody's on Instagram. So post it, but you can have certain platforms that you focus on. And make sure you put it out there on those. Because I know for me personally, I get most of my traffic from Instagram and Twitter. From my personal promotions. Now for Facebook, I don't really get the traffic unless it's a post that I'm a group of a person who has a group on Facebook that I can share it to. Then it gets a lot of traffic because all of those people see it, and most of those people are older people.
Yeah, that's true. There is a more of an older audience on Facebook. I mean, grandparents are on Facebook right now, you know, and so it depends on who you're trying to reach. But yeah, the Facebook reach has gone down unless you're in Facebook groups, because those are like-minded people. They can be fan clubs, they can be groups that are all around one artist or a topic, or you know, have something in common. And so that is really powerful. But I like what you said about focusing on one platform or focusing on where you are getting the most traffic, and you know, share it to other places, but don't spend a lot of time there if it's not the right people. Like you said, not everybody is on Facebook, not everybody's on Twitter, not everybody's on Instagram. So you have to find your people and where they're at and go, you know.
And that's something that I've focused on here in the last couple weeks. I've kind of changed up how I post stuff, because I not only do promotions for the podcast, but I do a lot of promotions and no, I don't get paid for it. I get a lot of questions about that. Do I get paid for my country music promotions? And the answer is no, I don't.
No, you do that for the love of it. Just sharing music and podcasts that you love.
And so here lately, I've really just focused on, you know, if it's about a person who has a group on Facebook that I can share it to, it goes on Facebook. If it's not, I just post it on Twitter. And here lately, I've been getting a lot more traffic doing things that way than posting everything on Facebook and everything on Instagram and everything on Twitter. Because then you're spending all this time, but people aren't getting the message, or the post isn't getting seen. And that takes a lot of time that you're not, I would say profiting from, but some of it's not profiting.
Well, you could be spending it somewhere else if people are actually interested somewhere else. And so I think that's a good point to make. And if you're not seeing a lot of engagement on one platform, maybe try something else. I like what you said, because you can test things, you can try it, and you can shift, you can make changes. Goodness, 2020 has been the year of pivot for so many people.
Yeah,
and pivot is the word of the year. We thought it was vision in January. We're like, this is the year of clarity and vision, and it has been in a weird kind of way, but it's been the year of pivot. Let's be honest.
And the year of a different kind of look, saying, God, what you doing up there? You got some other plans for us that we didn't know about, so we better listen.
Yeah, so as we kind of wrap this up and just talking about the behind the scenes, we'd love to hear from you. So send in your feedback, submit a review of the podcast, and go back and listen to the previous episodes if you haven't, because we've had some amazing guests lately. I get more and more excited. I don't know if I've had an absolute favorite guest or like a least favorite guest, but I just feel like they keep getting better and better. And as we get our system together of, you know, the topics and the quality of the guests and like making it very specific, I think that's just getting better and better. So I'm like, almost every week's my new favorite kind of thing, but it's been so good, and it's just going to keep growing. We're going to keep showing up, and I'm really excited about this new plan. I'm going to be doing more solo shows next year, and so you can be expecting one solo show at the end of every month, and I'm going to talk about those topics we went through: songwriting, recording, releasing, and promoting. And each month I'm going to pick one of those and be talking about it and sharing tips, sharing ways that you can connect with other musicians or connect with studios, or what's working now in social media promoting for musicians. So I'm really excited to get specific with that and to help you guys learn more about the industry as it's changing, and see what's working now. So as we're wrapping up, I want everyone to know how they can connect with you, Darlene, and so share where they can follow you and see your promotion, see what you're doing, and follow you. Would it be Instagram for you, or Twitter, or both?
Probably Instagram and Twitter, but everything is on my website at DarleneRaye.wordpress.com, and you can find all the links to my social media there. But my Twitter handle is at DarleneRaye13, and my Instagram is DarleneRaye Music. So,
and that's Ray with an E at the end, R-A-Y-E. So DarleneRaye. And yeah, connect with Darlene, see what she's doing, and make sure to follow Rustic Songbird if you haven't. She's the one that is posting our graphics. She's done an amazing job being consistent and making those schedules for us to get the graphics out, to promote the show, scheduling the podcast to get it out, and it would not be the same without her. So Darlene, thank you so much for all of your help. Thank you for helping me, because I need all the help I can get. I love this show, and I love you, and I'm just so thankful for our teamwork and for growing this thing together. So thanks for being here, and thanks for being on the show. Really excited to be doing this with you. So thanks for taking the time to do this episode with me behind the scenes.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Real quick, I want to say a big thank you for watching this behind the episode here on the YouTube channel, and I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel for more topics like this coming soon. We have new episodes of the podcast every single week, and share the behind the scenes right here on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything. Also, if you enjoy this podcast and want to show your support, consider joining our Patreon community to support us on a monthly basis. You can check out all the details at patreon.com/rusticsongbird. That's patreon.com/rusticsongbird to become a patron today. Thanks again for watching and make sure to subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.